Most men are bad at sex, but it's not primarily for the reason you may think. It's not primarily about what you are physically doing with a girl during sex, although most guys do suck at that. The biggest thing guys f up when it comes to sex is everything that occurs before the actual sex. You see, the sexual experience for a woman is not a purely physical one, it's a highly emotional journey. There are times when I've had sex with a girl when she literally comes the second I go inside of her because there's been so much arousal, so much foreplay, so much buildup that she's just that ready, that dripping wet before the sex even begins. So in this video, I'm gonna give you my top 5 sex tips, and these will make you better at the physical sex, but they will make you dramatically better at getting the girl ready and into the sex and increasing her pleasure in that way. Here we go. Sex tip number 1, sex has a genre. Not all sex is the same. Sex with girl A will be different than sex with girl B. Sex with girl A on Sunday will be different than sex with girl A on Valentine's Day or on Christmas or on Tuesday. Every single sexual experience is a little bit unique. And now obviously if you're having sex with the same partner over and over again, you're gonna get a good idea of what she likes over time, but it does change from experience to experience. If you run in out of a rainstorm, throw up against a wall and have like sex right there in the fucking cloakroom, that's different than slow, sensual sex on the bed after watching a movie together and snuggling up. Okay, every single experience is different. And in any experience, whether it's the first time or the 16th time you're having sex with a girl, you should be paying attention to what she is responding to. If she is responding to you pulling her hair, maybe she's down for more of a rough sex experience that day. If she is responding to you pulling away and being a little coquettish, maybe she wants to really be teased and she wants a slow buildup that particular day. If a girl starts moaning when you start giving her a massage, maybe she wants a very physically relaxing experience leading up very slowly to the sex. The point is, girls are gonna tell you what they want on any particular day. So what I recommend is you should have kind of an arsenal of sex moves or sex techniques, and you should sort of try them and see what's working. For example, one is like kiss the girl and then pull away. If that's working, she probably wants to be teased a little bit. Pulling the hair, like I said, indicates more roughness. If she's down for a hair pull, she might be down for spanking. She might be down for sex that's a little more fast and furious and not so much sensual and lovey-dovey. If the girl moans when you kiss her neck, she'll probably moan even more when you kiss her inner thighs. Also, from girl to girl, different things are more or less arousing. Some girls are incredibly aroused by you kissing and licking their nipples. Some girls it does almost nothing for. Some girls you can give an orgasm that way. Some girls don't even bat an eyelash. Also, when it comes down to physical sex, some girls are incredibly clit focused, and that's the best way to give an orgasm, whereas other girls want you to go hard and deep, and they'll respond when you put a finger deep inside of them or when your penis goes deep inside of them. The point is to give a girl a sample of the genre. If she's into it, go with it. If she doesn't seem to be so into it, drop it and try a different approach. Again, sex can be different with each individual girl, and they will let you know by the noises they make, how they respond, when they loosen up, when they tense up, when they reciprocate, when they jump on top of you. Pay attention. They will tell you how they want to be fucked. Sex tip number 2, move forward slower than you think is necessary, and then even slower than that. You see, for men, our arousal is pretty binary. We see a woman and we're like, I would have sex with this girl, yes or no, like a light switch, on or off. Women are not quite the same. Women, if they are aroused by you a bit or they would have sex with you, it's like the light switch is on, but it's a dimmer switch. And then over time, it ramps up and up and up and up and up until it becomes glaringly bright and they're extremely turned on. But if you rush it, the woman hasn't had time to get fully turned on, fully aroused, fully wet yet. So take your time. I promise you this. As long as you are appreciably moving closer to sex, the girl is not going to get bored in the process. She's just going to get wetter and wetter and wetter and wetter. But if you rush things forward, you're risking her not being fully aroused yet. And what you really want, what's going to make the best sexual experience, is when it's not a case of her sitting there and accepting you moving forward sexually on her, but when she's actually an active participant. You want her to get to the point where she has wanted sex with you at least 10 or 15 minutes before you're doing it. And actually, not even that. She has wanted to kiss you 10 or 15 minutes before you kissed her. and then she wanted you to start taking her clothes off 15 or 20 minutes before you started taking her clothes off. And you want her to have wanted you to touch her most sensitive and intimate areas way before you started doing that as well. And how will you know when this is happening? When she starts doing it on you. When she starts taking your clothes off. When she starts reaching down and grabbing your dick. When she starts kissing your neck and pulling your hair and jumping on top of you. If you take it slow, you're not going to be the one escalating sexually on her while she sits there as a recipient. She's going to become an active participant. And that's what you want. So what am I suggesting? Do a ton of foreplay. More foreplay than you think is necessary, and then even more beyond that. It's very difficult to do too much foreplay. The only time you're gonna end up doing too much foreplay is if the foreplay becomes static. If you get stuck on one foreplay move and just do it and do it and do it with no progression ever, that can get boring, right? If you just sit there kissing the girl and kissing the girl and kissing the girl and never going further, that can definitely get boring. But as long as you're appreciably moving forward, it is very, very hard to go too slowly, and it's very easy to go too fast. For this next tip, we are going to be overtly physical. And my tip here is know what you're working with in general, and also know what you're working with relative to the girl. What is your physical anatomy and her physical anatomy? I have had sex with a range of women. I've had sex with women from 4'8" to 6'3". Okay, so a very, very big range. And the way the physical body works when the girl's very small and the girl's very big are very, very different. I've also had sex with girls that were incredibly tight and tiny and girls that were less tight and tiny. And if you want to please them, you have to kind of know what you're working with relative to what they're working with. I have a pretty average size white man penis. So with that, with certain girls, I'm absolutely enormous. With other girls, I am not quite so large. But my dick is not my only asset in terms of pleasing women. I have my fingers, I have my tongue, and I also have different positions. There are some positions that allow you relatively to feel bigger and go deeper, and there are some that do the opposite. And when I did my go deeper position with some of the smallest girls I've ever been with, it was painful for them and we had to stop. But with some of the taller girls I've been with, there were other restrictions. For example, I have found that when the girl is taller than you, doing doggy style doesn't work particularly well because you can't get high enough to get the proper angle. And so you might want to avoid that, or you might want to set it up so that you're on top of something, you're kneeling on something higher up or whatever. So you need to figure out what you're physically dealing with for the particular girl, and also be aware that you have a lot of tools besides just your penis. And in general, if you ever are unsatisfying with your penis for whatever reason, whether it's because you're small relative to the girl, or whether it's because you come too fast, or whatever, or you have trouble getting hard at a particular time, you have other options for pleasing her. As long as she gets aroused, has an orgasm, and has you inside of her at some point during the experience, it will be a positive experience for her. Even if, when you're inside of her, that's not the highest point of the experience, and even if you're a little disappointing in that way. Also, if you do happen to have trouble getting hard, or if you do come too fast, being able to work well with your tongue, with your fingers, buys you time to then recover and get hard again, or gives you time to jerk yourself off while going down on her so that you can get hard and can perform. Okay, so realize that you have a lot of tools at your disposal. Your penis is only one of them, and you also have a lot of positions available to you. My next tip is in some ways an extension of the tip about foreplay, but it's much more specific, and it's also incredibly applicable to the first few times you have sex with a new girl. And this is what I call the 80% rule. Basically, it goes like this. Whatever she is okay with you doing, you should do about 80% of it. Or let's say, for example, she's fully okay with you fingering her. That doesn't mean you should finger her just yet. Maybe you run your fingers right next to and over the sensitive areas, but not quite touching it. Hint at it and get her wanting it even more. Or for example, a lot of times, instead of you making a physical move on her, maybe make the same physical move on yourself. Instead of you trying to touch her chest, put her hand on your chest. The idea here is that she's comfortable up to this level. You go 80% of the level. She's going to be enjoying that 80%. She's also going to be wondering, why didn't he escalate that last 20%? And it's going to make her comfortable. It's going to make her feel like you're not taking liberties. And it's also going to make her kind of more okay with extending it. So that 100% becomes 120. Now you go to what was previously 90, but is now like, I don't know what the ratio is, but it's now around 80% of what the current escalation kind of cap would be. By constantly escalating 80% instead of 100, she's going to be very down. She's going to be very aroused. She's going to be wondering why you're not doing the rest. She may even fill in that gap and start escalating on you. And very importantly, you're never going to over-escalate. And interestingly enough, you will probably escalate to sex by default faster that way than if you did escalate 100%. If she said you can do this, right, not literally said, but if she's indicating you could do this level and you do right at this level, she's gonna be nervous like, oh God, is he gonna step one step too far? Or God forbid you do step one step too far, she says no. That really slows things down, that really dampens the mood, and it really, it puts a negative emotion, a negative feeling into the whole experience. Whereas again, if you just go that 80% and then it expands, you go 80% and it expands, you're going to escalate very fast. It's going to be very arousing for her. It's going to be very, very good. So try and keep in mind this idea of going 80 rather than 100. My final tip for this video is going to be a little bit counterintuitive because throughout this video, what we're mainly talking about at its core is how to please the woman. But what I'm going to encourage you to do in this tip is to be okay with being a little bit selfish as well, at least for a lot of guys. I hear so many guys, so many of my clients, they talk to me about they're trying so hard to please the woman, and then they end up causing themselves to underperform as a result. They're so worried about her experience, they get out of the mood themselves, they aren't getting aroused, and then they don't get hard. And then they fundamentally give her a less good experience than they would have if they'd been a little bit selfish. Or for example, they're so worried about how it feels for her, they stop enjoying it and thinking about how it feels for them, and then they have trouble coming. So understand that part of her experience, especially towards the back end of the sexual experience, is going to be you getting off as well. So if she's already had an orgasm, she's already felt really good, but then you can't get hard, she might worry about that. That might lessen the experience for her. Or if you're going and you can't come at the end, she might feel like she's not enough, and that might be not as emotionally good for her. So at a certain point in the sexual experience, once you know you've done a good job, don't worry quite so much about her. You've kind of already taken care of her, and focus on you. Focus on really feeling every delicious inch of her as you go in and out. Focus on looking at her and objectifying her and thinking about what's hot about her and getting yourself uniquely aroused, because that's going to have an effect on you that she's going to feel. If you're more turned on, she can tell you're more turned on. If you're harder, she can feel that you're harder, both emotionally and physically. So it's okay to be a little bit selfish. It's also okay if you need some help along the way to take a moment and ask for that help, right? So if you're having trouble getting hard, you can take a minute, go down on her and just jerk herself off. You can also ask her to kiss you in various places. You can ask her to go down on you. You can ask her to help you. Don't ask it in that way, but baby, it'd be really hot if you did this. Or I want you to kiss me here. You can ask for what you need, and you can give yourself the time and give yourself the lack of pressure to have a positive experience for yourself as well. Because a good sexual experience shouldn't just be all about her. It should be mutual, and at least to some extent, you having a good time will make her have a better time. So don't be so unselfish that you end up underperforming. Also, if you do have a history of having performance issues, whether physically or psychologically, there are medical solutions for that, and it's not a terrible idea. There are very few side effects. So if having a Viagra in your back pocket either helps you physically or gives you the confidence to know that it's there just in case so you're not in your head as much, that can be very, very useful, especially the first few times you have sex with a girl. And especially, I know a lot of times early on in a relationship, you're having sex with a condom, it's harder to perform. Later on, once you've been tested, you're intimate, maybe without a condom, you perform just fine. But the point is, those medical solutions do exist. The consequences are pretty low. So that is another resource that's available to you if you want to take it. There's no shame in it. You can totally be a sexually healthy 25-year-old and use a Viagra. There's nothing wrong with that. So those are my tips. If you have specific questions, put them in the comments below and we'll try and get to them. Thanks, take care.